A new financial year is the perfect time to get ahead. Whether you're a business owner or property investor, these smart tax moves will help you stay compliant. Claim what you're entitled to and avoid the stress at tax time.
We're back in your life and it's a new financial year and it's opportunity to be a new you. Amanda, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So you've got some hot tips on how we can better manage our money in 2025. So our accountant really likes us.
It's 2026, James.
What do you mean?
So we finished the 2025 financial year on the 31st of March, 2025. 1 April 25 is the beginning of the 26th year. So hot financial tips for 26.
Do you know what I like about that? If you said new year, new me, but then didn't work out, you haven't changed, you got another chance.
There's other tax years as well around the world, so you could just keep changing.
Yeah, what's Australia?
June.
Yeah.
So 1 July to 30 June.
Yeah, nice. I'll start with
again.
that one.
Yeah.
So Amanda, it's 2026. How do I get my shit together?
So, I mean, let's think that you're absolutely not got your shit together. You want to start by having your bank account set up so that they're for specific things if you're in business or in property investment, or probably even if you're just trying to save. So bank accounts set up for what you're doing for your business spending, keep your personal stuff your personal accounts. You will then have it easier when you go to do your taxes, your GST, everything's in one place.
But Amanda, my accountant always says, let's just increase those expenses at the end of the year so I pay less tax. So how does that work if I'm keeping my expenses separate from the business expenses?
But you can increase your business expenses. But
right, okay.
Yeah. So
that's also
spending
stupid,
money.
right?
Yeah, it depends on what you're spending money on, right? So if you're increasing your expenses because, say, you've found some subscription or technology that's going to save you time, that's not really a waste of money. But if you're just going out and buying assets because it's 31 March and you're going to buy a car because you'll get a tax deduction, that's not going to work.
Can I ask, just on the investment property side, is it best to have one account per property, or should you have like one account for all of the properties?
So it depends on how you own them. So if you owned
in a company.
So you own the properties in a company?
We're talking about us.
We're talking about us.
You're talking about your stuff.
Personalized accounting advice on this podcast, please.
So this is just some personal financial, tax planning.
Go for it.
Sweet. It depends on what you're wanting to look at. So if you're using like software like Xero, you can set up tracking for properties. So you could have all your stuff running, all your expenses and income running through one bank account. And if you're going to want to look at it on a property by property basis, you'd have property tracking set up. So you'd code the expenses with the property tracked. So you don't need separate bank accounts. They can be beneficial for people who don't pay invoices. So if you're going to get fussy about how you're tracking it, if you're not going to be putting in the details each time of being, high street, you wouldn't know. So then you would separate out the bank account. It's a bit of a personal preference thing.
Is there, without going down too much of a rabbit hole about our own tax, is there a scenario where like we would have access to our Xero profile as well, or would we just leave it all to the US account?
If you have an active subscription, then you can definitely.
Do we have an active subscription?
I don't know. That's a great question for your accountant. I'm not your accountant.
Higgsy, where are you at?
Yeah.
So if you have an active Xero subscription, it would be normal that you'd have access to it. You may or may not know how to use it. I don't know how.
I
good
know
you
how
guys...
to use it because we both know how to use it because we code for the business. So should we be doing that throughout the year?
I had to explain that advertising is also marketing.
Yeah, look, should we be doing that throughout the year?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can pull pretty easy reports during the year to see how things are going.
I love coding my.
Yeah, I actually love coding the expenses. Yeah,
it's therapeutic.
You want a job?
No.
Okay, so we've got the dedicated bank accounts. That makes a lot of sense. I think it creates a heap of risk as well, especially if we're talking really for anybody. But if you have, like, say, your mortgage payments going out of the personal account, the rent going into this account, and especially if you're making a profit, right, you do create a lot of risk if you don't keep it separate, that you're going to go, Amanda's going to very nicely say to you, time to pay your tax. And you're going to go, I have no money.
Yeah.
And it's because you had poor structure and you spent the tax money.
Well, that's another one. A lot of people aren't putting away the money when they're told about the taxes, right? So you might get, in, say, for example, for GST, if you're 2 monthly registered, your GST payments come around every 2 months, the bane of your existence. So you receive the money when you're paid by customers and clients, but you most likely you're out spending that money on the next things and not thinking about the GST. So really good practice is also having another bank account set up for taxes. So you put a portion of revenue coming in to the side, waiting for those tax payments to need to go out. So today's the 5th of April. We have terminal tax for the 2024 tax year is due on the 7th of April. We spend a fair bit of time in the lead up to the 7th of April getting clients sorted that haven't got the money put aside. And that can be for a variety of factors. And the cost of delaying the taxes always aren't necessarily that bad. But if you are in a position to be putting money aside, it's always better to kind of be at least set up so it's not a surprise.
Sometimes I run into clients and I don't know, they go, I've just found out from my accountant, I've got like $100,000 tax bill that's popped up on me as a surprise. And
Seems unlikely.
I take that as there's poor structure, there's poor planning, and you've probably got an unengaged accountant. And I'll just like go, you come in with me, you move into Lighthouse Accounting to deal with it going forward. The surprises with those tax bills just...
Well, so you can get a surprise tax bill for a couple of reasons. One, that you might be quite far behind in your tax filing. So if you're doing things at the last minute, right before a due date, the tax due date and when you find out about the taxes can be really close together. And especially so, for example, for the 2024 tax year, if you made all the money that's causing your tax bill at the beginning of that tax year, which would have been, say, April, May 2023, being ready to pay for that in April 2025 is quite a shift in where your thinking might be. And you're like, well, I've spent that, I've used that money for other things. I've bought assets, whatever, that isn't going to help towards your tax bill.
Okay, Amanda, what I'm keen to know now is kind of the difference around what you can and can't claim on. Amanda's going to answer that question after this break.
If you're feeling unsure about your tax setup this year, now's the time to sort it. At Lighthouse, we help business owners and property investors stay compliant, maximize deductions, and plan ahead. Book in a quick chat with the team and start the financial year with confidence. Now, back to the show.
So, Amanda, what can we claim on?
So the simplest way to think about it is, did the expense help you earn revenue? So there's a big thing in tax of nexus with income, and that's the connection between earning revenue and being able to claim a deduction. So if you were to think about a business, the rent for office space, your salaries and wages for your staff, stationery, that kind of thing, deductible. Friday drinks, partly deductible.
Partly.
So yeah, there's tax rules that come into play for different deductions like entertainment, whether you can claim alcohol and gifts and things. So you can usually claim like 50%. Certain times you can claim 100%.
And the whole
What are the times when you can claim 100%?
Nothing relevant for you.
Okay.
the whole piece around 50%, is that just to make sure that people aren't just pumping a bunch of expenses?
Totally. So it's the recognition that it may be a business expense, but it may not be tax deductible. So it's still an expense to the business. It's just that you can't get a tax deduction for going out for drinks and lunches all the time on the business card.
What about the stupid things like somebody buys a boat because it's a tax play? Like, how does that work?
When you do have, say, a business boat or something along those lines, what it usually will fall into is the mixed use asset rules. So there's a portion of it that's used personally, a portion of it that's used business, and the claims kind of come down to that. So there's a couple of overarching themes in tax deductions of whether it's allowed or not. The first one being capital limitation. So if something is a capital expense, i.e. buying a building, that's capital, you can't claim it as a tax deduction. And then the private limitation is that if something is private in nature, you going on a holiday, for example, to Fiji where you have no clients, you're not doing any work, that's private in nature, can't claim it.
You mentioned like the trip to Fiji. What are some other examples that you commonly run into where people try to push this one through and you're like, nah, no bueno?
To be honest, it just really depends on clients and how they manage their spending. So some examples are people buying things in the business card and then just being like, oh, here's the invoice, and you're looking at it and it's just not relevant to the business. You ask about it and they're like, oh yeah, it's just for me. Or just that money that account had money in it, sort of thing.
What about when it comes to work from home? Like, how does a lot of people working from home, how does that impact your tax?
Well, so if you're a business owner and you work from home, there usually is an ability to claim a home office expense. If you're an employee, there's no home office claim.
Yeah.
So you're kind of limited based on New Zealand tax deductions. For individuals, there's pretty much nothing you can claim apart from income protection insurance and accounting fees. If you're in business and you legitimately are using your home for work, then yes, you can claim a proportion of your expenses.
How about chattels, Amanda? I'm always hearing about chattels and how they're depreciated. How does that work?
Yeah, so if you buy a chattel, an asset that is under $1,000, so say you went and bought a new phone and it was $750, 100% for business use, you could claim that outright. If you were to purchase a new laptop in, say, February, you've owned it for 2 months of the financial year ended 31 March, you'd claim 2 months of depreciation and IRD rates. That sits on your balance sheet, and the next year would be depreciated again. If it was under $1,000, you can claim it outright when you purchase it.
Oh, so that's why we have a line on our coding called assets under $1,000. I just wonder why that was there.
That makes sense. And good to know that I'm buying all these laptops for all these new starters. You may have to claim some of it back.
Worst part is they all started in February, so it's pretty minor claim this year.
But next year, we're on with our tax, baby. Speaking of tax, Amanda, let's jump to our obligations. I mean, you mentioned GST, and I kind of went into like a
zoned out.
Sad place where Andrew every 2 months goes, "Here you go, mate." And I go, "Do not call me your mate." What are our obligations?
Yeah, so if you're GST registered, if your turnover is over $60,000, or if you have chosen to opt into the GST regime with turnover under 60,000, you have to pay GST when your registration filing requirement comes up. And then your tax obligations are paying tax at the end of the tax year. If your tax bill over $5,000, then you need to pay provisional tax, which is basically the next year's tax paid in advance based on an increase of 5% over the last tax year.
How does that work with, like, say, obviously we're in a recession. Don't know if you heard, Amanda. A lot of companies aren't doing that well. And then when it comes to provisional tax, maybe the year before you did really well. How does that work?
Yeah, so there's a couple of options with provisional tax. The main one is called the standard uplift. So that is the 5% increase on the year prior. What companies do when they're pretty certain that their tax obligations are going to be lower than the year before is they may enter into the estimation method. And so that's basically saying to IRD, this is what I'm expecting to pay my taxes are. And then another option people also use is to kind of tax plan around and use a tax pooling intermediary such as tax traders. So you can decide whether you want to put money into the tax pool at the time of the obligation. So say you had a $5,000 expected tax payment at 28 August, and you're pretty sure you're not going to need that based on business performance at the time, you might choose to put, say, $2,500 into that tax pool as your kind of safety net. And then your next obligation is going to be at January and then May. So each of those times you might put some money into the tax pool, but also recognize that business isn't going the same way it was the year before. And then when it comes time for the final tax, like once you're at the end of the tax year, you can review what your profit and loss is looking like and what tax obligations you're going to have.
I like tax traders because essentially I just set up like an automatic payment where I'm just kind of dealing with it a little bit every week.
And that's another way of, putting money aside for tax is putting it to something like tax traders. So when you pay money to IRD for your taxes, you can move it around, but it's not that flexible. You can't earn money on it. You can't really save money. You can't save money if you've underpaid on it. Using a tax pooling intermediary like tax traders means that you can set it up in a way that you can earn money if you don't need the tax, but also save money if you needed more tax than what you'd put aside.
Yeah. And how about Airbnbs? I hear like Airbnbs sometimes get in trouble with GST and those sort of things.
Yeah. So the GST rules around Airbnb and short stay accommodation changed from 1 April 2024. So this is the first year of filing where if you were a GST registered Airbnb host, that you didn't have to take care of your GST obligations. You got to claim the expenses for GST. And then if you're a non-registered Airbnb host, you receive a credit for not being GST registered because the end consumer is paying GST on Airbnb.
So I guess the big thing, Amanda, is this all really comes down to the tidier you keep your house, the more organized you are. It's just going to make life easier, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are organized and you're using the correct bank accounts, you're keeping your invoices and files in check either through Xero and uploading them at the time, or you've got like a Google Drive folder that you keep everything in, your end of tax year and your GST time is always going to be way easier. If you are operating out of multiple bank accounts and you paper copy all of your files and don't do anything, it's going to be complicated and it's stressful.
Yeah. And because obviously you see a lot of property investors, a lot of businesses. I'm assuming the tidier you see these accounts in the businesses, generally speaking, the more successful they are.
Yeah, it tends to go kind of hand in hand. It's more that if people are keeping on top and organized in their stuff, they actually know what's happening and they're recognizing the opportunities. Whereas if you're kind of always on the back foot and you're filing later and you're paying your taxes later, you're playing catch up on your taxes from a year before, it's really hard to make those next decisions about what you want to do either with your business or your property investment journey.
I do find that wild when there's people running businesses out there that aren't very close to the numbers, or maybe just like completely dependent on the accountant. And if you don't have your finances sorted and you're trying to make decisions around, do I hire this next person? Do I invest in this extra machinery? And you don't know where your numbers are at. Like, you must just be shooting in the dark as to what you should do.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you're not looking at the numbers at least somewhat as a business owner, you're not going to know what the correct next step is. And you can keep throwing money at things and wondering where the money's going and nothing's going to land if you don't actually know what you're doing. But at the same time, that comes down to an understanding kind of what your business is and what you're doing. So if you're only going to your accountant for your tax obligations, they're not going to be able to tell you what to do next or be able to help you with making those decisions. If you're kind of doing planning work and involving them in the process, they might be able to help you.
Awesome. Last question. What percentage of clients do you think keep their accounts tidy?
Maybe like 50 to 60%. I would say on average.
Yeah, awesome. So if you're thinking about how do I get a competitive edge, whether it's property investment or running your business, essentially you're getting ahead of 50% of others out there by doing something that you really know and you should be doing. So hopefully those tips will help you make the most of 2026. Amanda, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much to Lighthouse Financial for sponsoring this episode. Please subscribe to the channel, give us a review, give us a like, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.